In your confirmation hearings, you promised to uphold the highest standards for vaccines. Since then, I've grown deeply concerned. The public has seen measles outbreaks, leadership of the National Institute of Health questioning the use of mRNA vaccines, the recently confirmed director of Centers for Disease Control and Prevention fired. Americans don't know who to rely on.
That's Republican Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming grilling Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. yesterday over his handling of the Trump administration's health care agenda. Joining us this morning is NBC Washington correspondent Alice Barr. Alice, we all watched that video, watched that interaction. And in fact, that was one of the more tame interactions. The secretary really was hammered from all sides. You watched a lot more of that. How bad was it?
Good morning, Jonathan. Yeah, what you just heard from Senator Barrasso, who is also a physician, by the way, was really more of a light seer compared to the full grilling that he got from some of the other senators on Capitol Hill. But it is important to note that it was not just from Democrats. Barrasso, again, he's the number 2, in fact, Republican in the Senate. And there were a number of other ones. Interesting that 2 of the Republicans on that committee are physicians, and they both had, pretty serious concerns to raise about a lot of controversial decisions that have been made by Secretary Kennedy during his time as health secretary, and specifically including Senator Raphael Warnock of Georgia, saying that he believes that Secretary Kennedy is a hazard to the health of the American people. Republican Bill Cassidy, another one of the physicians on the committee, pointed to new restrictions on COVID vaccine approvals that now are only applying to older adults and high-risk Americans with other underlying conditions. Pharmacies are now requiring prescriptions in many states or not offering the shots at all, at least for now. And Senator Cassidy said, quote, "I would say effectively we're denying people vaccine." Secretary Kennedy rejected that assertion, but nonetheless, it is out there. And there seems to be evidence that, getting your insurance to cover your vaccine or just getting it physically from the pharmacy is not as simple as it was, say, a month or 2 before now.
All right. Well, Alice, we did hear Secretary Kennedy, what happened there, but we also saw that he's still getting the critical support and the backing of President Trump. Do we expect that to continue, considering many Republicans, at least some of them now, changing their tune?
Yeah, so President Trump said that he had not actually watched the hearing, but he said he heard that Secretary Kennedy did great. He called him a good man and said that he likes that he has different ideas. And that's what Secretary Kennedy would say in his own defense, is that he believes that, he's on the right side here. He said, we're going to tell people the truth for the first time. And President Trump seemed to back him on that he likes his sort of outsider perspective. And again, this idea of making America healthy again is what Secretary Kennedy initially ran on, and then President Trump kind of embraced. And it is a more alternative method to approaching healthcare, medical care in this country. And, Secretary Kennedy said that we have a lot of ingrained illness in this country, and that he thinks that is why some people needed to lose their jobs. Again, he just recently fired the director of the Centers for Disease Control there in Atlanta, and that has been a huge issue and something else that he took a lot of heat over. Senator Elizabeth Warren, for instance, said, well, she didn't bow to him, she didn't take the knee, and so you fired her. Secretary Kennedy sort of rejected that and said that, there need to be some changes. He has said that the CDC made mistakes during the pandemic and that he thinks that all justifies the shakeup that we've been seeing.
Yeah, Alice, you just talked about the fired CDC director. We also know that we heard from her directly in a new editorial. What did she say, and has Kennedy said anything in response?
Yeah, she wrote in the Wall Street Journal that she was fired because she refused to pre-approve the recommendations of a vaccine advisory panel newly filled with people who have publicly expressed anti-vaccine rhetoric. Secretary Kennedy was asked about that directly. He said that he did not say that to her. He was asked whether that means he's accusing her of lying, and he said, yes, that is what he was doing. We heard some pushback on that. Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina, for instance, said that he has a hard time believing that all of these scientists that Secretary Kennedy is discrediting and saying that they are the ones who are lying, he has a hard time believing that these people would go to the CDC with the express intention of lying to the American public about science. Just a lot of layers and a lot that came out in that hearing.
Yes, a lot of layers. Alice Barr, thank you so much for joining us.